Hey guys, welcome back to Believe in Eagles. I'm your host, Lee Mayock, and joining me is my wonderful, lovely dad, Mike. Believe in Eagles is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. I've had to spread my wings, as I told you, and start betting on basketball to scratch that itch that Bet Online brought me during the NFL season. And I'm actually so excited about tonight's bet because Luka Doncic is returning home to the Mavs to play against his former team that he just got traded from for the first time. He's finally kind of getting in his groove, playing with LeBron and Austin Reeves, and I think he's due to just be a monster. The numbers, they were not nice to us with the lines and the numbers because I think everyone is thinking the same thing that I am, that Luka's going to go off against his old team, and so I have like a little bit different of an angle on this, and I really think you're gonna want to do it with me. Okay, I'm doing the over on Austin Reeves assist because I think they're just gonna be dishing it to Luka, and that's one of like the more friendly lines. I also think I'm gonna take the over, and this sounds aggressive, but the over on the player combo, Luka's points, rebounds, and assists. It's really, really high right now. It's like going back up and down between 46.5 and 48.5, which seems like so much, but I just think this is like a very special circumstance, and I just have to go with it. What do you think, Dad? Am I being crazy?
I'm going to trust your basketball bloodlines, Lee.
Okay, I'm really way more excited about Austin Reeves' assist. I think he's going to get that easy, and he's been killing it too. But the Luka numbers are so freaking high. I almost want to take an under, but then I'm like, I can't take an under when he's playing against his old team. I just can't do it.
Well, you were a better high school basketball player than I was, which pains me to say. So I'm gonna go with you.
You could just say I was a better athlete than you, and then just like cover that hole.
No, you got it.
Okay, well, Dad, it is Combine Week.
Yep.
Usually, both of us would be in Indy. And at some point, we'd be sharing that spicy shrimp at, what's that place called? St. Elmo's.
St. Elmo's, yeah.
Yeah. But instead, you're in Georgia. I'm in Pennsylvania. We're sharing a coffee and a podcast. That works too.
Yes, it does.
Okay. But so I don't know if a lot of people know this. You were kind of at you were low-key covering the first NFL combine that allowed media to even be there, right?
Yeah.
Take us back in time. Paint a picture of what combine used to be like.
See, the background is, and it's hard to believe this, but back in the day, the competition committee of the NFL wouldn't let anybody in the building other than NFL personnel.
And it was still in Indy, right? It was always Indy.
Yeah, it was in the old RCA Dome in Indy. And you couldn't get in there to cover it as a media. It wasn't televised. It was like a cloak of secrecy, and the competition committee didn't want anything to get out. And then they kind of had a meeting to decide, like, they didn't feel like enough players were participating in drills and were declining to do the drills in favor of doing them at their pro days. So it was kind of going the wrong way. And they thought, well, if we let television in, maybe these kids will want to work out on TV because it'll be blown up and they can run their 40s. And so the first year, they only let a couple of us in, and it was me and Paul Burmeister from the NFL Network, and we had a cameraman and a producer, Jason Wormser. And we just had folding chairs down by the 50-yard line. And like the first time we came on air, it was offensive line day, the first day. Mm-hmm. And Paul and I were standing right by the 50-yard line, and the O-linemen were working out literally right behind us, 5 yards away. And we did our open, and we're talking, and we're on live television. And Paul asked me about one of the offensive linemen. And I said, well, I think he's this. He needs more sand in his pants. He's maybe go in the third round. And then you hear this kid screaming at me, Mayock, you suck. What are you talking about? Blah. And it was the offensive lineman I was talking about.
The one that needed more sand in his pants? What does that mean?
Yeah, like get stronger.
Oh,
better.
Okay.
And he's screaming at me, and it just clearly came out on the air. Burmeister's cracking up.
It was on it. They could hear it on TV?
Oh, yeah. The guy's MFing me. And
were any of your friends watching? Did anyone text you?
Well, the best thing there was like a year later, we came back with the whole NFL Network crew and did the whole thing live for the first time. And Rich Eisen and I did it from up in the booth. And, it was a big deal, the whole thing televised. And because O-line day was the first day, traditionally back in those days, Pop, your grandfather, my dad, was an offensive line coach, a college offensive line coach. So we did the O-line on national television the first day, and I was all fired up. I thought it went well, and they did the 40s and all the rest. And I ran back to my hotel room, and I called Pop. And I said, Pop, how do you think it went? And you're Pop. He said, son, after 6 minutes of that offensive line mirror drill, I had to turn that shit off.
He was not impressed.
And I'm thinking, I was crushed. I was thinking, if my own father, the offensive line coach, won't watch the offensive line drills at the combine, who's watching them? And to my surprise, the whole underwear Olympic thing took off. People were just fascinated to watch these guys run, and they weren't wearing helmets, so it personalized them a little more. They went through it. So for me, the combine goes back a lot of years, and I've seen a whole lot of there's a lot of stories both on the field and in the bars and everywhere. I mean, there's some really amazing things that happened over the years.
Do you think, how you were saying they were kind of using TV as a ploy to get people to play at combine instead of their pro day? Do you think now, because of social media and the way things are, that people have enough of that limelight if they want it, that it's kind of going the other way with some of these guys that are now not deciding to participate, just do the interviews and then go throw at their pro day or work out at their pro day?
Yeah, the NFL tracked it over the years, and there was a very big jump, a spike in players participating after we started getting a lot of really good reviews on the way it was covered.
Yeah.
I mean, I had NFL head coaches after a few years call me saying, I'm not going to tell anybody, but I'm going to stay home and work in my office and just have you guys on in the background because of the way it's covered.
Right. But do you think it's different now? Like, are we at a different spot now?
For a bunch of years, it ascended. I think more and more players now are kind of going, I'd rather just do my pro day. Mm-hmm. And my reaction was, I used to have players ask me, what do you think I should do?
I remember that, yeah.
And I would tell them, why wouldn't you want 2 bites at the apple instead of 1? If you run a slow 40 or you don't like your workout, you can then go back to your pro day and improve it. There was a guy named Joe Hayden from University of Florida who was a corner and a really good player.
Browns.
Yeah, nice job. Very surprising. He was a corner, and he ran really poorly at the combine. And I just happened to run into him at the tunnel when we were done our day, and he was really upset. And he asked me a question. I said, Joe, here's the deal. You just go back to Gainesville, sleep in your own bed, get ready, come out ready to compete because you're a really good football player and you're going to run your 4.45 or your 4.42. You're going to be fine. Just don't panic. Go back and he went back and ran well. And he gave me a big hug after and thanked me. And my point was, you get 2 shots at that. If you had run poorly at your pro day, you were screwed. Mm-hmm. And then the other part of that is if you run well at the combine, then you don't have to run at your pro day. You ran your last 40 for the rest of your life. You can just get ready for all your positional stuff. So that's how I kind of feel about it. But I think more and more players are saying, the quarterbacks are saying, I don't want to throw to guys I don't know. I want to sleep in my own bed. I want to work out on my own script for my pro day. And the high-level players at every position a lot of them are going, I just want to do my pro day.
Do you think that there is something to be said, though, that the quarterbacks are kind of in a different situation and it might behoove them to the top guys? It might behoove them to just throw in a controlled environment, in like a Shador controlled environment.
I don't think it matters if they throw at the combine or not. It's not going to hurt them because if
you
they're
don't
running
think it can hurt them. That would be I think I see where they're coming from, and they are like, I don't have anything to gain from. I only have everything to lose.
No, I don't think it hurts them because basically at the combine, they tell you, okay, throw an 18-yard comeback. And if you throw it over the guy's head, it doesn't really matter because you don't even know the guy. We all know that. We're
but
just
but if it doesn't really matter, then why should they even throw there?
well, because it shows that they want to compete. They're not afraid of the limelight. I kind of like that. Now, again, it doesn't count against them if they don't. So you go to their pro day, you get an opportunity to work with like Kyler Murray, my first year with the Raiders. Gruden and I and Greg Olson, our offense coordinator, we went and did a private workout with him. We got a really good look at him. I mean, John had him in his hotel room. We met him in his hotel room, and he had him barking signals in the hotel room. I mean, loud. This poor kid.
I couldn't imagine what you've witnessed and experienced firsthand with Gruden at player interview meetings at Combine.
No, Gruden was great with that because
I know. I just mean that must have been so entertaining. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we go to work out Kyler Murray, and it was supposed to be a private. We didn't want anybody knowing we were going. So in the airport on the way out of Oakland, John buys all these Oakland Athletics baseball caps because that's who Kyler Murray played for in the minor leagues. They owned his rights. So he takes these caps with us to the workout. He works out Kyler Murray. We work him out. He has Kyler sign the caps, and then he does a video that he sends out wearing the Kyler Murray hat.
So much for your secret mission.
Oh, but it was awesome. He was so funny, and to give John credit, I mean, with players love working out with him and for him, and what he used to do with
energy is palpable, and like contagious.
But what he used to do with quarterbacks is like we'd bring the footballs with us. We'd travel with the footballs, and some of them had laces, some of them didn't. So when the quarterbacks were taking snaps, they didn't even know if they were going to have laces on the football or not, because he wanted them to have to deal with catch and throw, because in today's world, it's a lot of catch and throw without the laces. So how do you deal with that? And different quarterbacks dealt with that different ways. I've seen coaches at pro days dip footballs in puddles of water or take a spray bottle and squirt the water to see if a guy could throw a wet football. So there's all these different kind of cool things that over the years, both at Combine and pro days, I've had a peek at.
You had mentioned also the 40-yard dash, and that is like the marquee event that everyone all the fans are looking for. Everyone's hyping it up. Everyone needs to know, what's your 40? Why does that event matter, and how has that changed? Well,
it matters just like when you watch the Olympics, the Summer Olympics. Everybody wants to know who wins the 100 meters. That's kind of the marquee. I'm the fastest man in the world, or the fastest woman.
Who was it last year? Worthy?
Worthy set the record.
And do you remember he went back and redid it? He ran it again because he wanted to get it.
Yep.
That was sick.
Yep. But you just lit up right there because you wanted to talk about the fastest time. Mm-hmm. The ones I always got a kick out of, like I used to say all the time on the air, fast guys run fast, slow guys run slow. It's only a story when the opposite happens. Mm-hmm. So I always used to go, like, if somebody who I didn't think was that fast on tape ran a blazing time, you'd be like, oh, man, I got to go back and watch the tape. Or if a really fast guy on tape runs a kind of crappy time, you're like, man, I got to go back and watch the tape. It's a cross check. Mm-hmm. But the guys that I got a kick out of were not Xavier Worthy. Look, he's a track guy. He was going to run fast, right? It was not Chris Johnson, the running back that ran 4.24. I knew he was going to fly. I was watching the fat guys. Like, and
I don't think you can call them fat. Just say big guys.
All right, the fat guys. So the fat guys, like the 40 is not even legit. You'd be better off running a 10 or a 20, but we get those times anyway.
The splits, right?
Yeah. I was always enamored of the big guys, the fat guys. Like I looked up just today for you, the fastest offensive line times, right? Teron Armstead ran 4.71 at 306 pounds. Okay. He was from Arkansas Pine Bluff. That was his college. And because he ran that time, in addition to his tape and everything else, New Orleans took him in the third round. He's had a really long, really good career. And I remember the kid running that. Me going, Teron Armstead, are you kidding me? Now, and this will hit home with Eagles fans. The second fastest time for an offensive lineman was Lane Johnson.
Woo!
Lane Johnson was and still is a freak. The kid was a high school quarterback he ended up being a tight end and then a tackle. He ran 4.72 at the combine, and he's still an athletic freak and still wants to play. Trent Williams, who's probably been the best offensive tackle in football for the last 10, 15 years, at 315 pounds, he ran 4.81. He jumped 34 and a half inches, and he had an 11.3 broad jump. Those are defensive back times, those last two. So at 315 pounds,
that's insane.
He was jumping as high and as far as defensive backs and wideouts at 315. That's a friggin' freak.
Were you losing your mind when that happened?
Pretty much. And then I really remember Orlando Brown, whose father was Zeus Brown, who was one of the best O-linemen of all time. Or his son Orlando ran one of the slowest 40 times. He ran a 5.85 at the combine and was crushed. Like, people were saying he's going to be a first or second round pick. He runs 5.85. My heart went out to this kid. And then I went to his pro day at Oklahoma, and he ran way better.
Oof, that was my question. Next question. I was like, please tell me he did better at his pro day.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And he ended up going to the Ravens in the third round, becoming a really good player. Then he went to Kansas City and then Cincinnati. He's been a really good player. And then when you look at like the defensive lineman, Aaron Donald, the best defensive tackle, one of the best of all time, Hall of Famer, at 280 pounds, Lee, he ran a 4.68 defensive tackle. That's, again, faster than half the defensive backs run. I mean, Montez Sweat, the defensive end, 4.41.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
4.41?
Yeah. So I just kind of, and then my favorite 40 story of all time is Calvin Johnson, who's the Hall of Fame wideout from the Detroit Lions. He told the world, because he was going to be a top 5 pick, I'm not working out at the combine. And he was sitting there, gym shorts, T-shirt, sweats, watching the wideouts run, and his competitive juices got going. And he was like, the hell with it, I'm running. And he didn't have his running shoes there. So he borrowed somebody's running shoes, and he went out and ran like 4.35 at 220 pounds. And he blew it up. Like,
I'm obsessed with that.
Eisen and I were going crazy. Like, this kid just decided he wanted to compete and went boom. And
that's so fun. I feel like, just from like a mental standpoint, if these guys, and this is like way easier said than done because of all like the hype surrounding the event and all the people talking about how much it matters. I feel like if they just treated this as like a fun experience to like work out with like their peers before they head to the NFL, I think they would do so much better. Just like take the pressure off a little.
Here's the hardest part, though. There's some pressure. The hardest part, though, is that people don't really understand the schedule of the combine.
Oh, yeah. Will you take us through that? Because it's brutal.
Yeah, just really quickly, an overview is, I mean, they don't even work out on the field until their third or fourth day in Indianapolis. And the first few days, I mean, they get up early and they do nothing but medical, psychological testing all day long. So they're going from doctor to doctor, machine to machine, psychological testing, all kinds of different. So then they do the bench press the day before. But I mean, so they go through, and then at night, until like 11 o'clock at night, they're going through meetings from one team to another with 20 some minutes on the clock, and then a horn blares and you go on to the next team.
Speed dating, right? They call it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So basically your medical stuff, and you're getting herded around like sheep to all these different places all day long. Then you're interviewing where mentally you got to be on top of things with all these teams, asking all these weird questions and whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you get to bed at 11 or 12 o'clock, and then you do 3 days of this, and then you got to work out and get up and run a 40. So that's why a lot of them go, hell with that. I'm going to run my 40 at my pro day, where I'm sleeping in my own bed, on my own schedule, not traveling, don't have to worry about all. So that's kind of the other side of it for the players. It's a grind. It's a 3 or 4 day grind.
Well, then honestly, for me, that makes, I would give that would make me, that would give me another reason to just want to work out at my pro day, do all the stuff I have to do at combine, and then just work out at the pro day. If I had put myself in the position like a Shador or a Cam Ward that like the tape speaks for itself, blah, 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 I would just do pro day.
Well, that's fine for Shador and
the top guys that have already placed themselves up there.
Yeah, but that's whatever that percentage is, which isn't a high one.
Right.
The other thing that some guys do is they say, okay, I'm going to do all my speed training for the combine, or opposite. I'm going to do all my positional workouts for the combine, one or the other.
Right.
But I'm not going to cross them over. I'm going to do one or the, and I'll do the workouts at the combine and then do my 40 and vertical and all I'll do on my pro day. Okay. Or opposite. I'll do all those explosion things that are more track drills. Mm-hmm. I'll do them at the combine. And if I do well, I knock that out. And then all I got to do is my positional stuff at my pro day. And I like that too.
Okay. Okay. So this is an Eagles podcast. So are there any players at the combine this week that you think that Eagles fans should have their eyes on?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about certain positions, okay? Like offensive line, Lane Johnson's 35, going to be 35. Great player, still has a year or two left, I think. But how do you replace him? Are they going to kick Mekhi Becton over if they re-sign him? I don't know. But ultimately, you got to look at replenishing offensive linemen. So the Eagles are picking 32nd in the first round. Two guys I like, one of them is Ariante Ursary, a tackle from Minnesota, who I think Stoutland would love. I think he's a big piece of clay. He's 330 pounds. He's a big, thick-ass guy that kind of like Stout likes in his line. I think he's a little bit of a developmental guy, so Stout would have a chance to get more out of him. There's a guy named Armand Membu from Mizzou, who I like also, who can play guard or tackle. And I think Ursary could probably kick inside the guard. So I think there's some positional versatility. I think there's a chance that one of them could be available at 32. Mm-hmm. And I think, for me, I think they're really intriguing guys to keep an eye on if you're an Eagle fan. The tight end wideout thing is also interesting.
Well, you said, isn't this the deepest tight end class you've seen in a while? Yeah.
And I think there's a couple tight ends out there that I'm kind of intrigued by. Everybody knows about, the Tyler Warren kid from Penn State and the Michigan kid, Colston Loveland. So they're picking 32. I don't think they're picking a tight end at 32, but who's a tight end that can make a difference in the second round, late first round, second round, third round? There are two kids. There's a kid from Bowling Green. His name's Harold Fannin, 6'3", 238. This kid caught 117 passes this year at Bowling Green, which is ridiculous. And everybody's going, yeah, Bowling Green, so what? Well, they opened up against Penn State, and he caught 11 catches for over 100 yards. Then they played Texas A&M. He had 8 catches for almost $150. I mean, so that's 19 catches against 2 high-level Division I programs. This kid's legit. Then he went to the Senior Bowl and looked really athletic. He blocks well enough. He's more of a perimeter kind of blocker. I'm intrigued by him a little bit. And then there's a guy named Elijah Arroyo from Miami. Uh-huh. Had a bunch of injuries early in his career, but he's a little bigger, like 6'4", 255. He caught 35 passes, but averaged 17 yards a catch. And I think the athletic competition between these two kids, one of these two kids is going to pop early in the second round, I think. So they had a really good season. They went to the Senior Bowl, played really well, opened some eyes. Mm-hmm. Now the next step for them is, what do they do at the combine? How well do they run? How fluid are they in the catching drills? What do their hands look like? So I'm looking forward to comparing those two kids, and how he might have some ammunition to move up in the second round. He might not have to move up. Maybe one of them is there. Mm-hmm. So I'm really intrigued by those two guys.
Okay.
As far as, and that's kind of the offensive side of the ball. And I didn't mention the wideouts. Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, really solid. Really, I think he fit really well in their pass offense because he knows what he's doing. He's a precise route runner. He's smart as can be. Luther Bolden from Missouri is maybe a little more athletic, a little more explosive. Both those guys might be available at 32.
You're in first round of 32? First round?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the defensive side is kind of interesting, a little more, because, who are they going to sign and not sign in free agency?
Mm-hmm.
Can they afford to sign both Milt Williams and Josh Sweat? And if they can't, which one are they going to try hard to get done and let one walk to see what his value is in free agency? I'm kind of on the Milt Williams boat, which I think you probably figured out from our last podcast.
Yes.
He's going to be 26 in April. He's healthy. I think he's one of the most dominant, growing into being one of the more dominant young defensive tackles. And I think he still has more upside.
Okay.
I hate to see them lose him. If they did, what does the draft look like, right? So a guy from Oregon, Derek Harmon, is a guy to look out for at 32 in the first round. Explosive, quick, kind of has similar traits to Milt. In the second, third rounds, Josh Farmer from Florida State opened my eyes at the Senior Bowl. Really big ass, quick, explosive. I think he's interesting. There's a kid named Darius Alexander from Toledo, might be there in the third round. Again,
what is he?
They're all defensive tackles.
Okay.
I'm saying if you lost Milt Williams, these are three guys that might be interesting on the first and second day.
Got you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So all three of those guys are intriguing to me. And the latter two, Farmer and Alexander, popped at the Senior Bowl. And then if you look at Josh Sweat, okay, what happens if you let Josh Sweat go?
Right.
Now, Josh is going to be 28 later in March. So he's almost 20, so he's a couple of years older. Medically, I hope he's okay. There were some questions about knees coming out of college. But he's answered the bell, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
If they let him go in free agency and at the end of the first round, would James Pierce from Tennessee be there? Wow. What he'd be exciting to pair with Nolan Smith. I don't think he'd be there. He might be, but I don't think he'd be there. There's a kid from Georgia named Michael Williams.
Oh, yeah.
And Mike Green from Marshall. Those three, one of them could fall to 32. Okay. Don't know. It's still too early. But they're three intriguing guys to watch to see how they perform at the combine. I think the corner thing is interesting to me, Lee, because Darius Slay is 34. He's got an option bonus of $16 million due before the start of the regular season. And then he gets a salary. So he's going to cost the Eagles about $18 million unless they either restructure or cut him. Okay, that's a big bonus due at the regular. And he's 34, regardless of whether or not he's with them next year. And I think they'll find a way to make it work. Mm-hmm. You still got to be looking at corners. You got to replenish that. Even though they did great with Quinyon Mitchell and the nickel with Cooper DeJean. Who's going to play outside 2 years from now? Mm-hmm. And I think there's some intriguing guys. There's a guy that I really love named Azariah Thomas from Florida State. And I don't think people think as highly of him as I do. I'm intrigued to watch him at the combine. I want to see what he runs. But at 32, mm-hmm. I think he'll be there. And I'm intrigued by this kid. So I'd like to see how he runs. There's a safety from Georgia named Malachi Starks, who's explosive, man. He's really interesting. He can play nickel or safety.
And the Eagles do love the Georgia Bulldogs.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that's just kind of, it's too early to tell because you don't know what's going to happen with free agency.
No, but it's good to know. So Eagles fans and whoever else can keep an eye on these people while they watch the combine coverage. I think that's fun.
Yep. Yeah. So that's kind of a quick overview of some positions they might be looking at and some guys that might be there in the first couple of days.
Okay, so last thing, I asked social media to send you some questions, mainly combine related.
All right.
Favorite combine drill?
Favorite drill? I kind of like the positional drills that aren't typically measured. Like you're going to see a defensive back do a back pedal, change of direction, those kinds of things. I like that. I like the gauntlet where receivers catch the ball
and throw it down. Yeah.
Yeah, and people used to get upset. Some of the coaches and all like, why are you throwing it away? That makes you look like you're fumbling the ball. It's not balls. And I'm like, you know what? I like when the wideouts do it. I like when the tight ends do it. I mean, I like watching defensive backs try to catch the football in some of their drills. I like that gauntlet drill because you got to have quick hands and your eyes have to get to the right place. And I think it rather than saying, oh, that guy's got great hands, I think what it does for me is it exposes guys that don't. Mm-hmm. Their hands are late. They can't, and so I enjoy that drill a little bit. Drills I don't like. I mean, I told you the 40 for offensive linemen, even though the real, I gave you 3 great numbers with enough. I like the 10 and the 20 more for them. And I like some of the reaction drills, the 3-cone and the shuttle for like slot wideouts and defensive backs just to see quickness and change of direction.
But like what's your least favorite? Like which one would you remove? Which one do you think is pointless or just whatever?
I think I look at like that gauntlet drill. A lot of people don't like, and I've had a lot of former NFL players tell me that's a joke and they don't like it. And there are other drills like, why are you making a guy lay down and pop up to do a drill? You're like that. Like, so those are the kind of drills where former players go, we don't ever do that in a game. Why? and what I say is, the way evaluators look at everything in the combine is you can expose a lack of movement skills with everything they've got. So I like that. I didn't have anything I'd get rid of.
Okay. Favorite quarterback in the draft this year?
Probably Cam Ward, because I think there's a lot of upside there, and you've really got to do your homework on whether or not he's going to take care of the footballs, decision making. I give the kid a ton of credit. Lee, he came out with like a no star out of high school. The kid went to Incarnate Word College, which is a tiny school in Texas, for 2 years, right? Just to show he could play. Then he went out to the Pac-12 to what was it, Washington State for 2 years. Then he transferred this past year and threw up the numbers he did at Miami. So I love the fact that he came out of high school nowhere and he's going like this. And he's a self-made man. I'm anxious to see him. I'm intrigued by him.
Okay. The next one is, do you think the brotherly shove should be banned? And this is coming out because a team at meetings, NFL meetings in Indianapolis right now petitioned for the brotherly shove to be banned.
Yeah, it was good. That was Green Bay. Green Bay wants it out.
Okay, Green Bay did it. Yeah.
A lot of teams want it out. I don't like it. I don't think it's football.
Really?
I worry a little bit about the safety. You listen to Jason Kelsey talk about it, and he's like, yeah, I hated it, but it was good for us because it gave us an advantage. So he's trying to submarine 300+ pound fat boys and get under them and drive them, and he's got 1,500 pounds lying on him. I don't like. You're allowed to push a runner from behind. So beyond the tush push, I don't like when they're 6 yards downfield, linemen are coming up and pushing the pile. I think that's dangerous. You're not allowed to pull runners, but they don't call that. You can see linemen pulling them. So any of the pushing or pulling of piles, I don't like. I don't think it's really football. It's kind of fun to watch. The Eagles have an advantage because they do it so well, but I don't like the play.
Okay, fair enough. Philly's not going to like that, Dad.
Well, Philly will get over it.
Okay, I think that is good for today. We have hit the NFL Combine. Are you going to watch? I'm
going to watch some of it. Been there, done that a lot of years. So but I'm going to watch some of it. And because of, Rich Eisen and Daniel Jeremiah and Charles Davis and, I always try to support my guys. They're really good at what they do.
And they really are. And they have made it such a spectacle.
Yep.
And I am so impressed by it. I mean, like, I know I'm weird, so I would watch it regardless, but I know so many people that watch it just for the entertainment value, and that's a kind of a tribute to how well they do that broadcast. I'm obsessed with it.
I used to have arguments all the time with Charlie Uke, who's their executive producer, who I love, because I wanted hard football. And Charlie was like, we got to have some production value to this whole thing that's fun. And I think they do a great job of showing comps of players and real NFL action and why the drills make sense. And then they have fun with other stuff. And
Run, Rich, Run. And then they show, my favorite thing is when they show Rich versus the players.
Yeah, when they
superimpose him to see how like slow or fast he or the players are. He's had some good years of it.
He's a riot. We talked yesterday. I did his show, and he was talking about one of the first years he did the run. This is before it became a big deal. Yeah. We did it just to have some fun. It's turned into raising millions and millions of dollars for St. Jude Hospital.
For St. Jude, yeah.
Mm-hmm. One of the first years he did it, he was trying to get a good time, and he worked out and da-da-da-da. And the first one was not, I showed him to watch. Nah. Second, no. Third one, about 30 yards into the 40, he pops a hammy and goes down. And I tried not to laugh. I don't know how successful I was. And he was like, well, we obviously can't do it. We can't do it this year. And I was like, Rich, this is the perfect opportunity for you to show a little humility, a little humanity. People are going to love seeing you. You're trying your best.
It's real. It's vulnerable.
Yeah. And it's funny. He told the story yesterday when I was doing his podcast. He was like, it was the best advice I ever got, because that kind of got a lot of attention. And then it kind of grew from there. And when we finally did it on air and showed the video of him and getting shot, I told him that Bill Polian, the Indy GM, was up in the upper deck with a sniper rifle and shot him in the buttocks. Anyway, so we've had a lot of fun over the years, and the Run Rich Run thing is so cool, and it's grown for all the right reasons.
He's doing it this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So that's another thing to look out for. We'll look out for all the Eagles potential players and Rich Eisen on Run Rich Run.
Cool.
That'll be fun. Okay, thanks, guys. We will be back next week, and I'll talk to you later, Dad.